The desert holds secrets. Ancient secrets buried beneath its scorching sands, whispered through the wind that howls between the twisted arms of Joshua trees. But some secrets are fresher, more terrifying, and they refuse to stay buried. October 10th, 2010. The sun was setting over Joshua Tree National Park when Sarah and Michael Chen made what would become the most haunting decision of their lives. Sarah, 7 months pregnant with their first child, rubbed her swollen belly as she gazed at the reservation confirmation on her phone. "Are you sure about this, babe?" Sarah's voice carried a tremor of uncertainty. "The baby's been kicking all day," and Dr. Martinez said. "We need this," Michael interrupted, his eyes distant, haunted by something he couldn't quite name. "Before everything changes, before we become 3. What they didn't know, what they couldn't know, was that something was already watching them from the shadows of the desert. Something that had been waiting in those desolate canyons for decades. Ranger Tom Vasquez still remembers the call that came in 3 days later. Sarah's sister, Jessica, her voice breaking through static and tears. They never came home. They were supposed to be back Sunday night. Tom. Something's wrong. Something's terribly wrong. The search began immediately. Helicopters circled like metallic vultures above the desert floor. Search dogs whined and paced, their sensitive noses picking up traces that led nowhere. Volunteers combed every trail, every hidden canyon, every shadow cast by the ancient Joshua trees. But the desert gave up nothing. Not a tent, not a sleeping bag, not even a footprint in the sand. "It's like they just vanished," Vasquez whispered to investigators, his weathered hands trembling as he pointed to the map. "40 years I've worked this desert. People don't just disappear without a trace, not like this." Days turned to weeks, weeks turned to months. The story faded from local news, buried beneath fresher tragedies and newer mysteries. Sarah's due date came and went, marked only by her sister's silent tears and a nursery that would forever remain empty. But the desert remembers everything. Jake Morrison thought he was just another adventure blogger seeking content for his YouTube channel. Armed with drone cameras and survival gear, he'd planned a solo camping trip to the exact coordinates where the Chens had vanished 11 years earlier. "What's up, adventure seekers?" Jake's voice echoed against the canyon walls as he set up his camera. "Today we're exploring one of Joshua Tree's darkest mysteries, a pregnant couple who vanished without a trace, leaving behind questions that still haunt." That's when Jake noticed it. A glint of metal buried beneath a pile of rocks that seemed too perfectly arranged. Too intentional. With trembling hands, Jake began moving the stones. One by one, each rock heavier than the last, as if the desert itself was fighting to keep its secrets buried. And then, he saw it. A wedding ring, Sarah's wedding ring, still gleaming despite 11 years buried in the sand. But that wasn't the most chilling discovery. Clutched beside the ring was a torn piece of maternity clothing, and written in faded ink across the fabric, in Sarah's handwriting, were 3 words that would change everything. "He's not human." Jake's drone camera, still circling overhead, captured what happened next. The footage would later be analyzed by experts, debated by skeptics, and feared by those who knew the truth. The ground beneath Jake began to shift. Not like an earthquake, something else. Something deliberate, as if the earth itself was breathing. And from the shadows of the Joshua trees, shapes began to emerge. Tall, elongated figures that moved with an otherworldly grace. Their movements too fluid, too perfect for anything terrestrial. Jake ran. The camera bounced wildly as his footsteps pounded against the hard-packed desert floor. Behind him, the sounds grew louder, not footsteps, but something else. Something that whispered his name on the desert wind. The park rangers found Jake's equipment 3 days later. His camera, his drone, his camping gear, all arranged in the exact same pattern as the Chen's missing belongings, had been described 11 years earlier. But Jake Morrison was never found. However, his final video upload would reveal the truth that authorities had spent 11 years trying to hide. In the recovered footage, enhanced by digital forensics experts, voices could be heard speaking in the background. Voices that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. They spoke of things that predate human civilization. Of entities that have walked this desert since before the first Joshua tree took root. Of a hunger that transcends human understanding. The truth about Sarah and Michael Chen and now Jake Morrison lies buried somewhere in Joshua Tree National Park. But it's not buried in the sand. It's buried in something far more terrifying. Park records, sealed for over a decade, reveal that the area where they vanished was once considered sacred ground by indigenous tribes, a place they refused to enter after sunset, a place they called the threshold between worlds. Recent geological surveys have detected massive underground cavern systems directly beneath the disappearance sites, caverns that shouldn't exist according to the known rock formations. But the most chilling discovery came from Jake's final video transmission, one that wasn't uploaded to YouTube, but was found stored in a government database. In the enhanced footage, as Jake runs through the desert, his camera briefly captures something that will haunt investigators forever. A perfectly preserved campsite, complete with modern camping equipment, flickering campfire, and two figures sitting by the flames. Two figures who appear to be Sarah and Michael Chen, unchanged, unaged, still waiting by their campfire after 11 years in the desert. What this mystery teaches us: the disappearance of Sarah and Michael Chen, followed by Jake Morrison's vanishing, highlights several critical lessons about wilderness safety and missing person investigations. Desert survival reality. Joshua Tree National Park spans over 200 square miles of harsh desert terrain. Temperatures can swing from over 100 degrees during the day to below freezing at night. Even experienced hikers can become disoriented in terrain that looks identical for miles in every direction. The statistics are sobering. Over 20 people go missing in U.S. national parks every year. While most are found within 24 hours, approximately 150 cases remain unsolved annually. Desert environments pose unique challenges. Bodies can mummify in the dry heat, making decomposition slower but remains harder to detect. Technology limitations. Despite advances in GPS, cell towers, and search equipment, vast wilderness areas still have dead zones where communication fails. Satellite phones and emergency beacons are essential for desert camping. Psychological factors. Isolation and extreme environments can cause hallucinations, disorientation, and poor decision-making. The phenomenon of paradoxical undressing causes hypothermic individuals to remove clothing, while heat exhaustion can lead to wandering behavior. Indigenous wisdom. Many disappearances occur in areas that indigenous peoples historically avoided or considered spiritually dangerous. These warnings often reflected real environmental hazards, unstable terrain, flash flood zones, or areas with dangerous wildlife. Investigation challenges. Missing person cases in wilderness areas face unique obstacles. Weather erases evidence, wildlife disturbs scenes, and vast search areas exceed available resources. Advanced techniques like ground-penetrating radar and thermal imaging are revolutionizing these investigations. The Chen and Morrison cases remain open, serving as stark reminders that despite our technological advances, nature still holds mysteries we're only beginning to understand.